We're going to talk about comparison, expectations, and fiction.
So when you dated your husband in the beginning, did you ever answer the door with your hair all crazy?
Hey, it's the MorrowMarriage podcast. Today, I have a good one for you. You react, so you repeat your cycle.
I'm Cass.
I'm Kathryn.
Today, we want to talk about the nice guys, covert contracts, and why it's killing your marriage.
How to help someone who's sitting in their pain. And we can talk about people in general. And today, I want to talk about money and how it's not the problem. Because, guys, you can't solve problems if people are presenting fake shit.
We're MorrowMarriage.
Let's flip divorce statistics with the new marriage.
Welcome to the MorrowMarriage podcast today. And guys, we are going to talk about comparison, expectations, and fiction. Hang on, because this is going to be a little bit interesting. I'm kind of excited to see where this one goes.
Comparisons, expectations, and fiction.
That's right. And by the way, when I say fiction, I'm not talking about my self-improvement book, Disrupting Divorce, holding a real copy, guys. MorrowMarriage.com/disrupt releases September 16th. But if you go to MorrowMarriage.com/disrupt, throw your email in there. If we can get this thing out to you sooner and disrupt one more marriage faster, I will. So make sure you get your email in there for us. Okay, guys.
Not fiction, to be clear.
Not fiction. That is correct. Yes.
Self-help.
Self-help. All right. So disrupting divorce is, I'm going into my book. No, scratch that. All right. So comparison, expectations, and fiction. This comes from, if you don't know, guys, you can send us a message, some fan mail through the podcast here, and we will address your questions. And so I love it when this happens. A man messaged and said, how in the world can I move my marriage forward when my wife compares me? Her expectations are exceedingly high, no matter what I do, because I'm being compared to a fictional character.
Are you the fictional character?
No. Well, I hope not. No, it's a romance novel, I think, or something like this. But all right. The reason this matters to me is because although I don't think that probably, like we talk about it all the time with porn, but we don't really hear about it a lot with romance novels and women or reality shows and women.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yeah, please.
So, okay. The reason I joked and asked if it was you is because, so if we're talking about romance books, if we're talking about, he just mentioned porn, social media, right? Like we've had multiple people ask us, is this real? Right?
Our marriage, yeah.
Yeah, is it real? And two people specifically that I can think of, he said, Kathryn, I know, like, I believe you. I believe this all to be real. I've seen it in action, but I just need you to tell me again that this is real, that this is possible. And so just taking a step back from where we're going to go in this episode for a second, when you are looking at other people and admiring what they have in their marriage, I want to make sure that you're really clear to yourself. He always talks about asking. In the last episode, we talked about asking for help from people whose marriage is successful, and believing. You need to believe in things. You need to have the hope and the faith to move forward. And so sometimes, while yes, if we're going to talk about a romance novel and you're comparing it to something that is fiction, make sure that you have that dividing line. Is it fiction or is it real? Is it attainable? Because some people have a marriage that's very romance novel-esque. So that might not be yours, but there are people that have certain things that we all want to strive for. I'm not saying that everybody wants to strive for that, but don't write anything off.
No, I agree. I love that because
we believe it. For example, one more
Sure.
thing. We believe in the fairy tale. We say that we have a fairy tale marriage, and it is as close to a fairy tale as can be. Mm-hmm. So don't say that you can't have the fairy tale.
No, I love that. That's exactly what I was going to say, because we have always, even in the beginning, even when it was terrible, there was a part of us that was trying to create this illusion. And this is where,
which is bad. The illusion
is bad, but this is where people get screwed up, because you can create much more than you think. But here's the thing. If you're comparing your spouse, in this case, the husband, to the character in the romance novel, well, let's get real. Like what's the rest of your life like first? Because the setting is always set first before the characters, right? The characters are always added on and built on through the lessons and the settings and the stories that's being played out. Mm-hmm. So if you're comparing one, you must compare all. What are you like? Are you the woman in that novel? I'm guessing probably not. Okay. And so there's another side of this too, that I think that I don't know if we've talked about it enough, but we should probably bring it up today. When we were in our worst, I used to compare you to some exes, right? And,
oh yes, he did.
And I throw it in her face, and I would say, "You're meaner than," or whatever. And
I'm actually the meanest person in the world. For anyone who hasn't heard that yet.
So
least it used to be 5 years ago.
There she goes talking about the book she's writing right now, her romance novel. So, but yeah, so a lot of times people, when you get unhappy, you start to think about the past. Okay, not necessarily always about what it could be. We always talk about the grass is greener, and sometimes we start to have regrets about the past. And I've heard a lot of stories about husbands or wives. One of the things they're overcoming is a reconnection or a rekindle of an old flame or whatever. And you guys, you have to realize none of this is real. Again, the setting is
Fiction.
different. It's all fiction. The setting is different, and the setting is defined by the skills that you decide to learn. So if you're having expectations that are unreasonable because you're looking at the one part that you like and not looking at all the other things that you need to know to create this fairy tale in that case, you're not going to get there. The reason why we believe in the fairy tale is because we believe, I'm going to use affirmation statements, for example. You know, you can say I'm good enough and eventually you'll believe it. You can say you're beautiful in the mirror and look at yourself and eventually you will believe it. You might not necessarily if you have to do the work. You know, if I have to lose 25 pounds because I don't actually think I'd be happy 25 pounds heavier, then I can say that all I want and I probably won't convince myself, but it's proven affirmation statements will work. We say the same thing happening with insecurity. Who are you talking to on the phone? You're cheating. You've heard us talk about this in the podcast before. You almost make it happen. You perpetuate it. It's the reverse of affirmation statements. The fairy tale is no different, you know?
Yeah. And you know what I really loved that you said, honey, was let's go back to the romance novels, which by the way, we don't actually believe in them because it's written and not visual. You still don't need to be going and imagining outside of your marriage.
I put that in the category of porn.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's betrayal. It's not. So if you're doing that, maybe just reflect on it. We don't mean to come with condemnation, but we do want to open your eyes to the fact that you are fantasizing outside of your marriage. If you're picturing you and your husband, which is different than this episode, okay, maybe it's going to get you a little bit revved up and maybe there's some gray area there. But if you're not and you're actually picturing it and it's not you and your husband, then just something to reflect on. But what I liked was that you said, honey, the example I think you're saying is the men are feeling that they're not enough. They're feeling less than because their wives are reading these romance novels. And how can I compare to that? Mm-hmm. So with both parties, if you are saying that your man should be like that. So if you're reading, I don't read romance novels, but let's just say it's, I don't know, like I haven't watched very many porns either, like gross, but like the thing that comes to mind is like pizza delivery guy or like pool boy or something like that. So if you're reading and there's this like sexy pool boy and he's ripped and he's muscular and you're comparing your husband to that, like he said, are you that woman that's in the story that she's super sexy that the 25-year-old pool boy wants to get with? Are you that attractive person? And if you are, then great, put that towards your husband, not the pool boy. But when it comes to the fairy tale, the same sort of thing, like I'll say, I'm not going to be Cinderella. I'm not going to go scrub the floors. That's not my idea of a princess. But the idea is that when you hold these ideals, so if I want him to be my Prince Charming, if I want him to be my king, if I want him to save me from the dragon, I need to be the woman that he is going to come and do whatever you do with swords. And
I know they do a lot of work with cutting and stabbing.
They do. And then and I'll grow my hair super long and he can climb up and he can save me. So you have to be that woman, So I'll be Rapunzel. I won't be Cinderella. Don't count your chickens before the but you know what I mean, guys? So you need to, if you're going to want your husband to be that person and you're going to compare your husband, I call my husband a king every day. But you know what? Why that is? I want to be his queen. Does that make sense?
That's beautiful, baby.
Oh, thanks, baby.
Yeah. It's really, really important to understand, guys. You're going to get what you give. We talk about this all the time. And when you're talking about comparing to somebody that your partner is not, creating expectations that are unreasonable because, again, you don't even fit the bill potentially. And then if you do, like Kathryn said, then what are you giving towards your husband? Because you're just discouraging.
Yeah, you can influence your husband rather than cut your husband down by telling him everything that he's not.
100%. And, also along those lines, that's the same thing that happens with porn, guys, when it's flipped, with the unreasonable expectations of what should happen in the bedroom with whatever. Maybe you want to do role play and be the pool boy now or the pizza boy now because Kathryn talked about it on a podcast. But then within
your marriage, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you just have to start showing up in a way that can create all of this. When they say the fairy tale isn't true, like romance dies after a certain time. like things change after kids. Those are all the things that you believe because you're choosing to hear everybody else. And then if you add in these unrealistic expectations of comparing to fiction to other people, to us, if you're not willing to do the work, then you can't have what we have. We did the work, guys.
And you can absolutely, if you are willing to do the work, you don't need to, God forbid anybody's fantasizing about either one of us. I will come for you guys.
I just meant as a married couple.
But even so, if you want what we have, you can. This is something that we have proven time and time again that you can have this in your marriage.
100%. It's just up to you to take the step. And if you're waiting for your partner, you're probably going to be waiting a lot longer. You're going to coast a little longer until eventually one of you will probably quit. And you might as well just call a lawyer now. If you're blaming, if you're waiting, if you're coasting, if you're not going to do it right, then you might as well call a lawyer now because you're just going to do it down the road. Okay? All right, guys. That's not our dream. That's not our wish. Do it the other way. We'll see you next time. Our way. That's it. There's only one way. That's it. See you next time.
Bye.